The permanent mission of the Russian Federation to the United Nations in Geneva, the Imperial Orthodox Palestine Society of Moscow, and the Institute of Democracy and Cooperation in Paris, of which I, John Lauchland, am the Director of Studies, are very happy that you have come today. It's a great honour for us to welcome as our first speaker at our second event on Syria, our first event having been organised in March, on Syria, the Path to Peace. I'll introduce the other speakers in the order in which they speak. It's a great honour for us to open the discussion about Syria, the Path to Peace, with Mrs. Navantam Pillai, who needs no introduction. She is the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights.
The growing role of radical groups such as Jabhat al-Nusra, which is included in the Security Council's list of terrorist organizations, is in turn contributing to the increasingly vicious nature of the conflict and significantly adding to the suffering of civilians. The growing number of foreign fighters and the supply of arms to both sides is clearly helping to fuel the conflict. The regional dimension of this conflict is growing more and more ominous. At the beginning of the crisis, I warned that the situation in Syria could threaten the fragile stability of the region and spill across its borders. Yesterday's fears have become today's reality. As you are aware, earlier this week, the Independent International Commission of Inquiry presented its most recent report to the Human Rights Council. Many of the Commission's findings are similar to those of my office's monitoring team, which I deployed in March 2013 to countries neighboring Syria. The disregard for human life and dignity by the parties to the conflict is utterly appalling. Serious human rights violations, war crimes, crimes against humanity are becoming the norm. I'm also deeply alarmed by the Commission's observation that there are reasonable grounds to believe that chemical agents have been used as weapons, although the precise agents, delivery systems, or perpetrators could not yet be definitely identified. Another particularly worrying and persistent feature of the Syrian conflict is sexual violence. Credible reports note that both parties to the conflict have committed such violations. I'm also concerned about reports noted by the Commission of Inquiry about Syrian women in refugee camps who are allegedly facing gender-based violence, including sexual exploitation, rape, and forced marriages. Once again, I urge all the warring parties and the external states that have influence on them to reflect on where their policies have led so far and how to bring about a fundamental shift that will enable peace and justice to be restored before thousands more are killed, maimed, or forced to flee, with grave ramifications for the rest of the region and indeed the world at large. And this is why I encourage dialogues such as this and look forward to your discussions. Thank you very much.
I would also like to thank the Imperial Orthodox Palestine Society and the Paris Institute for Peace and Democracy, whose relentless efforts and committed work made this event possible. Dear participants, Syria has always been a cradle where dozens of ethnic and religious groups lived side by side in peace and security. Today, religious minorities in Syria are facing extreme danger. Radicals from armed groups linked to Al-Qaeda are openly threatening their very existence. Terrorists continue to receive money, weapons, and other support from abroad. They destroy churches, sacred and historical objects that are in UNESCO World Heritage List. They arbitrarily execute people. They want to establish in Syria a regime under which not only religious minorities and women will be deprived of their basic rights, but Christians, Alawites, Druze, and other minorities will face total elimination. Distinguished guests, peaceful solution is an imperative to resolve Syrian crisis. Only Syrian-led political settlement on the basis of the Geneva Communique of last year can bring back home those who had to flee, facing abuses from radical groups. Russia will continue its efforts to convene an international conference on Syria that hopefully will stop the bloodshed and open a door for a really democratic future for everyone in Syria.
Syria, this ancient country with great spiritual and civilization heritage, unique holy places of religious shrine, and spirit of tolerance in society, in which Christians and Muslims, different ethnic groups, have always lived side by side, transformed into a training ground of armed confrontation and human suffering. We consider unacceptable the continuation of bloodshed in Syria, the escalation of violence and discrimination.
Declaration of His Excellency Dr. Ahmed Badruddin al-Hassoun, Grand Mufti of Syria. Honorable members of the Human Rights Council of the United Nations, members of the Imperial Orthodox Palestine Society, we come from a country which invented the alphabet, the light of knowledge for everybody, and which has transmitted heavenly revelations as the light of guidance for the whole world. We have worked for the centuries in the service of men. We have loved one another and we have loved others.
In the Article 21, I don't know what the report understands or what the sources of these reports are when it asserts that the government forces are aiming to damage the infrastructure of the state when everybody knows how the non-governmental armed group are continuously perpetrating acts of destruction, vandalism and looting everything everywhere. Factories, electricity plants and extension, gas plant, pipelines, oil wells, water plant, aqueduct, hospitals, administration buildings, schools, museums, archaeological sites. And Mrs. Mayrek Maguire has a very precious document which we will translate that gives a thorough list of what has been documented by the administration.
They also need the help of outside friends, but they don't need outside friends who are threatening them with militarism and war and who are arming and training young men to go into this country and destroy it from within. Because let's be honest about this. This is not an Arab Spring with people asking for rights. Yes, of course the Syrian people want rights. They've lived under dictatorships for too long. But this is something more devious, something more insidious, something which the world has to wake up and recognize what's happening. This is a country being destroyed from within by outside forces. I have here a document given to me by the Justice Minister of Syria. I wanted to present it to the Human Rights Commissioner because this document contains the names of many people murdered, killed, assassinated, places destroyed, people disappeared, abducted by foreign jihadists and armed men, not by the government. Of course the government has done wrong and it has been admitted. It was too slow in bringing about any kind of change, but at least now the Syrian government has moved to change its constitution. It's working to try to move towards elections. It is trying to make a difference, and of course it's doing wrong. It should not be shelling its own people in an attempt to stop foreign fighters and armed insurrectionists. But then what government does not use force against its own people? Is there one round the table can put its hand and say, my government has never used force?
لم يكن توصيف الصراع في سوريا مبسطا، ولكن على العكس كان مبالغا به منذ بداية الأزمة. وكانت وسائل الإعلام تبث التقارير كل حسب توجهها. نحن نشعر بأن المسيحيين سيتعرضون للخطر بعد الأزمة في حال تغيير النظام، وما يدلل على تفاعلهم بشكل كامل في هذا المجتمع. تراهم اليوم يكادون يجتمعون بشكل كامل على إنقاذ هذا الوطن وعدم الانجراف إلى دوامة العنف. فلطالما كانوا رسل سلام، وإن وجدت بعض الأسماء المسيحية المتورطة في تأجيج الصراع العنيف، إلا أنها لا تمثل إلا نفسها.
As a result, Christians in Syria are facing persecutions which are becoming even more and more threatening. And of course, I wanted again remind you that about this very stressing thing that two very prominent Christian leaders were kidnapped on the 22nd of April by extremist group, and one of them Metropolitan Paul of Aleppo, the Patriarchate of Antioch. Another is Metropolitan Mar Gregorius Johanna Ibrahim from Syrian Orthodox Church, also Metropolitan of Aleppo. They were kidnapped by these militant groups. Their driver deacon was killed, and it was really a very a terrible sign for outside Christian world, for the Russian Orthodox Church. And our Patriarch made a lot of efforts to draw the attention of different parties to this problem. The letters were written to the President of Russian Federation, to the President of the United States, to the Secretary General of the United Nations, but unfortunately until now these two people are missing.
Nowadays there are no prerequisites for any democracy in Syria. And people who want peace there, in the places that Mother Agnes has mentioned, they now dream of only one right for life, for water and for medical care. They're sick and tired of waiting when their child will be killed from around the corner and with the head of their father who will play soccer. That is the result and the end of the policy that we have been witnessing during these years. Our Foreign Minister Lavrov, one in an open interview on Russian TV, and I noted exactly that episode of his interview, said that nowadays it's impossible to keep secret the secret telegrams from emissars from local places to the Centrum. So the secret messages of American emissars to the Centrum nowadays started saying the same things about danger of uncontrolled development, the same things that Russia has been pronouncing and saying all these years. And I think we must, I'm very glad that maybe, and I hope that our event, consecutive second event, will contribute to the mutual understanding of the expert community that will reach probably the ears of those who take the decisions. Working with European expert community, having conferences, seminars, round tables, discussing, we have noted already change in opinion, growing not only skepticism but negative attitude with regard to the Western policy. But we see very little change in the official position, but we hope that just pure reason and humanitarian dedication will bring our partners to the table of negotiations. Thank you very much, and thank you all.
Thank you.